Welcome back, everyone. Today we got a big project going on here. We are going to put the top on our 67 Bug Convertible here. Jay Ford's car. Car's name is Carmen. So Carmen's she's no longer gonna be topless. So a little bit more involved of a project here. I'll try to break things up into chapters so you can skip around to the areas that you might need. But our first step here is I've got the work done as far as restoring the frame goes. I've got our new wood bows on everywhere. These are just on here loose, these particular ones, because they will come off. They will get covered with headliner material. I prefer wood bows. I've used synthetic. They work, but a lot of times they don't seem to hold the staples as well. I've also run into issues like on the synthetic ones up front here. They have a piece of metal aluminum going through them that reinforces them to make them stronger. And I've ran into issues where when I put my staples in, the staples hit that aluminum. So I've used them, and I do once in a while. They're definitely much cheaper. And you know, when people talk, well, they're not going to rot. Well, if you these have been treated with a nice coat of varnish and whatnot. If you treat them, and most of these vehicles are not going to be out in the rain and weather like they were when they were original. And a lot of the original ones too, it wasn't even hardwood, it was more of a pressed together particle board. So that caused them to rot and get bad quick. But so that's just my take on the bows. You know, do whatever works for you. My preference is the wood bows. Once the bows were in, the next step, when the top was on, what I always do, to get my top lined up, you're going to want your latches on. Now, depending on the year of your car, the 67 and older, they use this type of latch mechanism. The newer cars have that little lever that comes down here. Same concept. Have it lined up, get your bow on, you can latch it. When I'm putting my frame on, what I usually do right down here is I'll take like a paint stick, mixing stick, and I set that in here, and that's how I usually adjust my height of my bow here. Because when you put your frame on, this can move up and down. If you're putting new wood on too, you may have to massage. These here I had to grind. These new bows didn't quite line up correct with the metal, so I had to massage them and clean them up a little bit. So you may have to do that from time to time. But other than that, straightforward with the bows. The next thing I did is you're going to want to find your center lines. So what I did is I measured and I found the center line of the car right here. And I marked it. And I did that for each of my bows. There's our rear one above the window. You should have that one's marked, that one, and we got our header marked. So that's our center lines, and we definitely want those because we want to make sure everything is centered on the car. The headliner and top and that, they'll usually have little dotted lines from the manufacturer that show you where the center line of that is, so you can line those up. So once we have that, we can start with our headliner. So I've got that laying over here. Let me go grab that. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lay this in here first. Now it's easy to tell the difference between the front and the rear of the headliner. The front has these little cutouts or ears or whatever you want to call them, because that's going to go up right in here. We're going to lay our headliner in here. Let's get that down inside there. Okay, we've got this listing here. So you've got the inside, and you got the seam, and that's going to sit right in this area right here. And what we're going to do is that's going to get folded in here. And we're going to end up putting our seam right like that. And we're going to staple this listing on. Now, as I mentioned, you can see the headliner here has this little purple chalk line. They even have a little notch here. That is the center of our headliner. So that is how we're going to line that up with our center line mark there. And what you can do too is, let me go get them. You can get little clamps. You've got all my bunch of clamps here. And we can use them to kind of hold things up a little bit temporarily. And then we're going to take, I have a pneumatic staple gun here. And these are the staples that I'm using. Yeah, they look like they're about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8. But that works well. You can get the hand staplers. Those work well also. The pneumatic seems to work better with the hardwood to definitely drive it in there better. So whatever you have. But essentially now what we're going to do, like I said, well, we got to come this way quite a bit. I'm going to lay that right on that corner. We're going to basically let's put another one in there. So that's going to hold us in there. Then we can come over and we can work our way to the side and continue to staple that on. Now we're going to want to pull a little bit to make it taut, but with vinyl you got to be very careful. Don't overstretch it. Otherwise you tend to get wrinkles by overstretching it. Seems counterintuitive. You think you would stretch out your wrinkles, but that doesn't always work that way. So I'm gonna put one here first. So I've got the one there. Now I'll be able to just come back and naturally pull this one and the rest of it into place. And then we're nice and even. nut. Staple our end. And we'll come along, pull that to the edge. Okay. So we've got the rear on. That's where that needs to go. Now we're going to come up front. And we're going to get our front section onto the header bowl here. And what I'm going to do temporarily put a clamp here, help us hold that up. So our headliner up on the header bowl, let's get you inside here. It will lay on top of the, and what we're gonna do, as you can see how this goes into here. Come on, stay there, camera. And then that'll end up stapling there. Now there's a screw hole right here. And that screw hole, because we're going to put a screw right here, and that's going to hold this, the headliner there also to keep that flap. Now I'll usually put that in after the fact. I'll usually get this stretched up there first. So let's see how we can show you what's going on here. We've got our center line. Got my center line. Just trying to think of how I can get up there easily. Car's up a little bit higher than normal because I got it on these rollers. I'm also going to take and put this blanket on here. Help protect a little bit. I am lucky I have the windshield out. That kind of makes it easier, but isn't the worst thing. Yours is probably going to have the windshield in. Purple. It's going to work out good. This section here is coming in well. And that's got to go. I'm putting just a little bit of, I'm not pulling too tight this way. Do the same thing over here. A bit tighter here. That. And then I'm going to take, and I'm just going to, just lightly, you don't want to overstretch it. Let me come back over here and show you what happens if you overstretch. When I want to pull this a little bit, I just want to pull a little bit to make it taut, because if I go too much, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but you can see how now it's too tight there, and I can never quite pull that out of there. So we just want to lightly taunt it up, okay? That'll come in, be even more handy when we get around the rear window to make sure we have a nice start of our headliner. So I'm just going to pop that out of there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to wait to hold these up here. And we're going to put our webbings in. Got our webbing material. We got two pieces, one for each side. And that essentially is going to go from this back tack strip up over to this, as far as this bow. And what that is we're going to tack it here. It's going to get tacked to this bow. We'll screw it to this one, and we'll screw it to this one. That's going to keep these bows in their correct location when the top goes up and down. So everything lines back up as we're doing things. So what we want to do first is you want to find the location of where that is going to go. Let me grab my ruler. What I'll do is I'll make this is just my hen scratching. I wrote them down. I'll make a little bit better picture there and I'll show you. So basically from the center line of the car over 16.5 inches. That's going to be center line. That's going to be the center line of our webbing. like such. Now when I staple these on, a lot of times if you staple it like this, it'll tend to fray and pull out, so I'll wrap it over like that. Then I'll staple it. That helps keep it from fraying. I need to get a hoseless staple gun so I'm not hauling that thing all over the place, rubbing against the car. Make sure you put enough staples in them. We're going to get tension on them. You notice I didn't put a ton of staples in these areas. And the reason being is when we put our padding on here, there'll be additional ones going in there. So I put enough to hold it in place as we're initially putting it up there. Now the next measurement that we need is we got to get the location of our rear header bow here. And that measurement is 21.5 from the edge of your car here to right there, to the edge of the wood here. That's where that bow has to go. Now, depending on the year of your car, 67.5 and newer, they use this style of back where there's a cable that's going to hold our top in. If you have an older car, you won't have the cable thing. It's going to all staple together and you'll have different trim that holds that top on. So, but the same concept. And I will also tell you that you'll want to get the measurements I'm using here are for this particular model and the newer ones. A lot of your older cars, this measurement is a little bit different. So you want to look that up. I'll see if I can find what those are and I'll list them so you can see what your particular year is. Let's see here. Sometimes it definitely helps to have another person. Come back to 21.5. Right about there. What I'm doing here is I want to mark my webbing. So I don't forget where it goes. So then this is going to go in. There's these little indents on your wood bowl. That's where your webbing is going to get stapled on. So this side I've got marked. I better double check, huh? 21.5. Okay. Let's put this on here. The next place we're going to hook this up is to this bowl. So we're basically going to pull ourselves tight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in here. From the factory, what they did is they wrapped these around and they sewed them. They had that all sewed together. But what works really nice is to put a screw in here with a finish washer on it that holds it, and trying to sew that up. If you want to be really authentic, yeah, you can go through and you can sew that all together. But I like the screw mount. Here's what I'm using for screws. Basically a big finish washer and a screw. So I'm going to take the drill that. And we got our screwdriver. Okay, now we need to locate this bowl. The measurement is going to be from this lip here to the center of this bowl. That is going to be 8 1/8, which I've got it pretty much right on there. That was luck. So I'm going to put a mark here in case it moves. And I'm going to do the same thing. See if we can get going on a round edge. Okay. Now from the factory, they had it sewed here also. They just kind of kept looping around this to hold it there. So you can do that route also. There. So that's the location of the webbings. But I've got this is what I use for glue. 3M Super Multi-Purpose. Seems to be the best that I've used so far. I guess anything of equivalent. I take this piece of paper to help with the overspray. once it's tacked up, okay, now that we've got our webbing on, we can put the rest of our headliner up there. And we've got 4 bows here. And the order that we're going to do that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the order that we're going to pull our listings up. So it's going to be tight because we're stretching a lot of stuff here. So we're going to want to pull that up there, and we'll be able to staple it. So I'm going to get some clamps and get it clamped up there. Okay, like I said, we want to get our clamps on. Now, that's pulling back some because of we're not quite hooked up front. That's okay. We do not need to be, this does not need to be all the way up there tight. We'll get it about as close as we can. It just as we start to staple, we'll make sure that it is consistent. We have our center line. It's on our center line of our bow. And then we get over to our webbing, we'll have to cut our listing a little bit around our webbing here. We just take our time. Okay. Next one is this one. This one we will be gluing. And I'm going to notch out around our webbing first. Getting sticky. Okay, I've got my center line mark right here. Looks like we're lining up good there. Now once again, as I pull this up, I want to get the same distance equally across here. Looks good inside there. Now we can come back and we can trim off that excess. That's 2. Our front one up here is going to be our 3. Yeah. So we're going to get a new piece of paper. All right, now we can jump on our 3rd one. Do the same thing. Same thing, consistent. Three down. 1 to go. Okay. Tack. Okay, we can trim that excess off here. All right, there's our headliner. I can trim a little bit more off of here. I'll probably go through and trim that off and check everything over. But our next step is we'll be able to start putting our padding on. So let me clean some of this up, get our padding ready to go, and we'll be back for more. All right. Okay, we're back. Like I said, we finished up our headliner. I went through and I put them screws in that I was telling you about, where the headliner gets screwed onto there. I trimmed up some more of our stuff here, down here, and now we're going to start putting get our window frame sitting in there. It's going to attach initially to our webbing here. That'll help hold it in place. And the next dimension that we have to worry about is our dimension from here to the bottom of the frame needs to be 3.5 inches. So I'm going to come down a little bit here. We want that to be 3.5 inches. That's where our window needs to go. So I'm going to just put a little light line right there. So I know that's my bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our webbings here. I'm going to pull this out to the side and staple it to the frame. Okay. We need to pull it out enough so it's not sticking inside this edge like this. Because when our window seal goes around the slip, we don't want that to be in the way, so we got to get that pulled up out of there. Up there. You got to staple this here, like that. Now, our window should be centered in there because these are centered. I've got a little bit of I marked down here. That's our center line. Now, one thing I missed telling you right off the bat was make sure you've got your window frame in there correctly. I wrote bot on here for the bottom. It looks the same. If you take your glass and you stick it in here, it fits in there nice this way. But if you put it in this way, it's not quite right. So there is a top and a bottom. And how you know what's top and bottom is your glass has this writing on it. So you want that not to be upside down, obviously. So you can put that in your frame and then you know where your bottom is. So that's how I did that. Frame in upside down. You'll have to put your glass in upside down. Okay, so that's holding our window frame in there for us until we get the rest on. Now we're going to start our padding. And I'll start with our quarter paddings. Your kit that you have, and I guess is probably going to be different. You'll have a piece of padding that goes just in this corner and one on the other side. That's how I've always had them, but now this West Coast Classic one, they gave me a piece of padding. It's kind of the whole thing. And I kind of like that because the other ones, they stop like right here and here, and you have this open spot that's doesn't have padding. And some, I don't want to say you can see it, but this just seems logical to do it this way. So we'll see if I'm happy with it. So mine's going to be a little bit different probably than yours, but the same concept. We're going to take instead of having one big piece here, you'll have a bunch of little ones, or I should say you'll have two each side that are kind of pre-cut. We're basically going to put this on here. Let's make sure we're getting it centered. I'm assuming that's what our little notch is there. Stay up there. We're going to take we got this little lip, we're going to keep it right down below that. Okay. Let's see how I want to do this. You'll have yours on there, or the one where there's two pieces, it'll already kind of have a cutout where the window is. So I'm trying to sit here, and my first time doing it like this. Where to cut this out. Tell you what I'm going to do. I don't want to cut any more out of this. I want more padding over there. I'm going to cut this into two pieces. That way I'm like what I'm used to. And then this can be padded all the way around there. Yep. And that'll go into there. It's going to make it easier, I think. I think what I'm going to do next, though, first too, is I'm going to tack this we're out of bullets. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do, we'll get our glue. We're going to glue this in here, or onto this piece. We want this to be, we don't want to go on top of our window frame. So we want it to kind of sit down inside here like that. So once the top is on and it wraps in there, top will be wrapped on that edge. There we go, like that. Let's do this side. Okay. See, I'm not sure why they make it one piece, because I wanted more to be this way. Otherwise, we would have ended, and we want that padding to go to that side more, because that kind of helps fill out the roundness of the top. So we're okay with this gap, because if you have the setup that I'm used to, you will not have anything there anyway. So then we can do this, flip that up. Now I'm going to put a few more staples down here. Remember, I didn't put a whole lot. I want to put a few more in here. We'll trim that a little bit. So I can pull that taunt a little bit. So what I did over on that side, I took and I folded this up underneath there. That's what I did with my excess. I'm going to cut some of this excess off now. And this will work all right. I'm just going to glue You shouldn't have to do this with your other kit, because that other kit's going to come with those pieces already cut to length. I thought it would be cool when I saw this to have that, but I like the other way better. Now we'll do this side. Okay. So that's our quarter paddings. Now we'll want to take the razor blade here. Cut out where the window is. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue this to my frame. That's what I want to do. I don't want to staple it. There. I'll mess with that more when I cut my headliner out. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our main padding on.
Oh.
All right, we're going to take and put our bottom fabric for the padding on here. Now, depending on where you got it from, West Coast Classic here uses kind of the burlap style, which was original. But when you put it on, you want to make sure these seams are to the inside of the padding. You want your nice vinyl here. Now, it don't look like they gave us a center line on this. So what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to get some type of point and determine where this lays and on that side so we get this centered. Where's our stapler? Okay. We're going to come to the front. We're going to do the same thing. Get ourselves centered and pull off some tension. And we're going to staple right up in here though. We don't want to staple down in here. Just want to get, because there's like this little edge right there. Keep our staples in that area. So it looks like I'm right about on the bolt here. And way off, so we gotta come this way more. So that's the bolt. Okay, reach this. Okay. I'm gonna wait to staple that part till we get our padding on there, the actual foam, and fold this. So that's the next task. This edge of this foam needs this, you don't want that sitting up on top of your header bowl. Okay? So your header bowl is like right here's the edge. You want this edge to be right at the edge of the header bowl. So when that top is on here and pulls down, it doesn't make a big bulge. Come this way a bit. That. Because then this foam is right on this edge here. So our top will come down onto there. And in the back here, we have the same scenario where this is going to go to the edge of our wood bowl, like that. Now what I'm going to do, clip this up here, and I want to put some glue on here. Just to help hold that there. So that's our first step. Now we're going to do the same scenario. We're going to glue this, and we're going to lay this over the top. And when we push this over, we want to try to get as few wrinkles as possible. Let's see how this comes down through here. The top will come down, wrap around, back here at least, and up here a little bit. Oh, it smells very, I don't even know what to call it. She's making fire starters. And she's melting candles.
Cedar.
So it's got like a, even like a, maybe a chocolatey or a spice type.
That was some of them.
Yep, that's what I smell the most of. So it smells so beautiful in here right now. Better than the glue maybe. I don't know, I think I'd rather the glue smell. Okay, that's how that goes. So now we're going to come across and we're going to staple again. Right there's our little bump, so we're going to put a row of staples along there to hold that on. And then we'll do the same thing up front here. Get it right where it's got to be, right in there. And then we can come and we'll glue some of this and trim some of this up. Then there's a piece of foam that goes on there. So basically I'm just stapling all this. All right, let's go jump to the front. So that's the padding part of it. So like I said, I'm going to go through now. I'll let you go for a bit, but I'm going to trim a lot of this excess off. And then I'll glue some of it down to the header. Same with back here. Trim that off and I'll glue some of that down. Because then what we have that'll go on next is we got this foam pad. And that'll end up going on here. If I can get it tape ripped. That'll end up going like this. And that'll get glued on there and that'll help any staples or bumps or whatever in there. And then this big one is for the front. We'll do the same scenario. So let me get this trimmed off and I'll get ready to glue these on. And I'm going to go through and also kind of staple the rear window area here and get this kind of finished off. And then I'll come back and I'll show you what I did. And then I think we can throw the top on. Start that. Okay. See you in a while. All right. Padding on. Trim glued. Put our little piece of foam on there. Same thing up front. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out our window opening in the headliner. So the first step is find my razor blade. Obviously, start out small. can always cut more, but you can't add it back on. So just basically going through here, and from the inside I'm kind of pushing up, and I'm giving myself quite a bit. Now in my case too, I want to get a bigger piece of this window cutter as I can, because they didn't send me any additional headliner material, and I need some to wrap around those one wood pieces inside there that I showed you earlier that I didn't have screwed on. So I'm not sure why they didn't send that. Usually headliners come with a little bit of extra material, so not in this case. Okay, hopefully that's enough. Our next step is we're going to slowly start pulling this up and around and stapling it to our wood bowl. Probably could have left a little bit more on there just to give me something to pull, but looks like I'm going to be right about where I want to be. Now here's where it's very important, where I had mentioned earlier, to not overstretch. You need to be, you want to stretch it obviously to get where you need to be, but set this a little bit lighter. Still a little, my gun has an adjustment here on how far it can shoot the staples in. It's shooting them in a little further than I want. It's kind of going through my headliner material. Let's pull our bottom. Now I'm going to make a suggestion for you. I've done this a few times, so I've got mine cut pretty decent because I know where I need to go. But just as a suggestion, I would tell you cut your hole smaller and then you can trim off this edge. I'm coming out nice where I want it to be. won't have to go through and retrim. But for your first time, if you're not familiar, like I said, take off less. You can always take more. So reason why you may want to leave a little bit more so you can grab it. Like here, I can't quite grab it. I need to get the screwdriver so I can come in here and pull it up and get it in there. Okay. So now to do our, around our corners here, we have to put little slits in. And you want to make that slit just a little bit. That. You can always, again, take more. So that's going to help us wrap this around here. I think we can get by. Okay, now remember, I'm putting this up here, so don't let me forget. I'm going to keep checking inside here, make sure I don't have any wrinkles. Too bad. That's not looking bad. All right. Let's maybe over here. And I remember where my razor blade is this time. Thanks for reminding me. So we're going to do the same thing. Now here, I just looked in there. I wanted to pull this enough to get it so I had a little bit more to hook. And when I look in there, that's giving me a wrinkle. You can see how it's kind of doing that, so I can't pull as much as I want. So we're going to do this one first. This is the tab. Darn it. That looks good. Here's what we look like inside here now. There's our window. Some of this little bit here, probably when I put the window in itself, will clear that up. But overall, it went pretty good. So now I can take my razor blade, and in these spots here where I am sticking out too far, I'm going to carefully just trim the excess around the window. Now we can go grab the top and start with that mess. So overall, it's going okay so far. I haven't had to cuss much, so let's see what the top brings us. I'll bring you back in a bit when I got it dug out and open it up and let it heat it up a little bit and get some of the wrinkles out of it. So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, let's get our top on. So I trimmed all this up, glued our foam on there. Did the same in the front. I also wanted to steal a little bit of finished product, so I put my latches and assist straps and coat hook in. But so now we're gonna do our top. On the 67 and older, we have to put our front bow seal on first. So I'm gonna open this up. And I've got our seal over here. On these older cars, where our header bowl seals to the front window frame, this is the seal you'll have. And that's going to go on here. So I'm going to end up trimming it and making it round around there. I'm going to put a couple staples and I'm going to glue most of it on. And then the top material goes over the top of it. So essentially your top material is kind of your seal against the window frame, and it'll compress some with this. On the newer cars, your top will go on and it'll be tight against the header bow here, and your seal will have a metal strip inside of it and it will screw onto the bow, so you'll have rubber that's tight on the header or the window frame. So a little bit different between the different model years. I will have John's convertible over there is a 69. I'll be doing the top on that pretty soon also, so I'll probably just do a video of that top install also just for the heck of it. And then, so if you do have a newer car, you'll see a little bit of the differences there. So, with all that said, I'm just going to set that there a sec. So I will put, maybe I don't quite need it. I'm going to put a couple staples in here to hold this around this edge. Okay. Now I'm going to take some weather strip adhesive for the rest of this. Then I'll staple on that side again too. So we're going to put this on both surfaces. Here, without getting glue all over our fender and whatnot. So we're going to let that tack up a little bit. While that's tacking up, we can start getting I took my latches off because the top will go inside there. We have our side cables here. These go in the side of the top and they keep it taut against the side of the metal frame when the top is up. And then this is a later 67, so it uses the cable in the rear setup. I don't have two of them. But sometimes it's good to have two of these on hand because a lot of times they'll pull out of here. And they even, looks like they gypped me a nut. But it's an M6, so got plenty of those. Then we also have our springs that are going to go on our side cables here. So we're going to put a cover over the top of these springs. From the factory, it was a piece of like plastic that a wiring harness would be in or something similar. Because when this is sitting in the frame, when the top is down, these can rattle. And I've heard it myself personally. So they have them wrapped in that. It helps prevent that from making that kind of noise. But we have our these little crimpers, because we'll be making loops in the end of here to hook on our spring and hook on our one wood in the back. So let's go back over here. Let's see if oh yeah, we should be good to fit this on. And we can cut our excess off. Aha, razor blade. Like that. Let's make sure we're straight. You can see when I put my foam on, I did let it go a little bit longer. Go on that edge. Okay. So now we can put our close our roof up again. There's your blade. This little tab here, that's where our spring is going to hook on. Nope. Backwards. that's sitting on there. This is a canvas top. I thought we were putting a vinyl on, but it's been a while since I had ordered it, so I forgot, but that's okay. Canvas looks very classy, but they did come from the factory with vinyl. So now we're going to end up feeding our cable through this groove here. So let's go over here. I'm going to go make my little plastic things here, and I'm going to put a loop in our cables. Essentially, we're just going to take and hammer this down. Okay, I'm going to go get these covered, and I'm going to get myself something to pull the cable through the top. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I've got our plastic sheeting here for our spring. What we're going to do then is we're going to take our spring and cable. We're going to get that hooked on there, and this is on here. Now we've got a metal rod here that I'm going to use, and our tape to put this through. Now, depending on where you got your top from, you may, a lot of times they'll have a string running through here when they sewed it together. They'll put a string through, and you'll be able to tie your cable to that string, or tape it to the string. But we don't have that. I actually kind of like this, because this is a nice pocket that they put in there. Those other ones, they actually have like a little hole, and it doesn't always line up right. So what we've got to do here is we've got to run our cable through this hole here in the metal frame. Put our plastic cover on there. And hook that like that in there. Now we can take our tape and we can pull our cable through like that. Now you're going to want to next get this top close to where it's got to go, as far as down along the edge here. Because what we need to do now is the cable here is going to go around this screw. But we want to give it some tension because we've got our spring there, so we're going to pull on this a little bit. And I'll usually make sure my top is open a little bit to help. And I'll pull. And I'll wrap this around here. That'll tell me where I want to be. Because now we can put our little crimp on here. And what I'm going to do to make my life a little bit easier, now that I know where I got to be, I'm going to open this up. Give me a little bit of something to work with. Yeah. And we can't pound it on the vise this time. We'll just take a vice grips here. And crimp it. That. And we can take our screw out of here. We gotta get our slack back. Screw this back in there. Okay, almost. Here, I don't want to tighten it tight. Now, when we shut our top, our spring gets pulled and we got nice tight tension here to hold this tight so it don't flap in the wind. There's how that's on there. So that's that. So let me go do the other side and then we'll come back and start fitting the rest of it. All right. Okay, we've got our side cables on. Now we're going to start putting our top on, and where we want to start is right in this area. There's a screw here in the body that the top will hold on, and then another screw is going to go into this wood right here. So we want to get those in there first. In my years of learning to do this, I had a lot of times I would put this back on first with the cable, and then I'm trying to stretch this into place, and it's just almost impossible. So I've learned to do these first, then put the back in. Now, there's excess material here that's going to need to be trimmed. And in this case, because this is going to wrap around like this and underneath in here, so I definitely have too much here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit off of here. And I'm going to keep it as close as I can to my seam here without messing up any of my threads. Sewing or the stitching is the word I'm looking for. That'll allow this to wrap in here like that. Now with the cable set up, there's a hole here in the top, and the cable's going to go through there, and it's going to go into this hole. Now the other thing you're going to want to do, all this excess material here, let me go grab the side. I got the cable on this side. Let me show you. So basically, what's going to happen here is you got this channel. Your top is here like this, and this cable is going to be in here. And as we tighten it up, the cable is going to push up in like that. I don't think I quite saw that. So the cable's going to go into this channel. The top is here, and when it tightens up, the cable will pull this top up in there like that. Okay? When they make these, they have this excessive material here. I like to cut it off. I'm trying to stuff 2 layers of material up in here, and it just makes it very difficult. So I'd rather just have 1 layer. So I will go through this, and we got to be careful we don't cut this where a cable goes through, but I will trim this right along the stitching. Like this. That way I'm not trying to stuff all of that into that channel. Okay, that's how that is. Now, to get these, you kind of got this little corner right here. That's kind of where it's going to go right here. Like that. And I'll take in my little pick scratch awl. And I know I want that to actually be down here more. I must not have had it pulled enough, but I know that. So we're going to put this in here, and this needs to be down here more, so it brings that out. And I'm going to give ourselves a pilot hole. have our screw. Our finish washer. Come on. That. Like that. Then we can take and pull this down and eye up where we're going to be. It's going to be right about here. And that'll pull down. And before we put that screw in, we want to feed our cable through the top. Through the hole. And then inside here, I can get you in here, is where this cable goes. It comes through here and it goes through that little hole right there, and then we'll put our nut on there. Let's see here. How easy this is going to be. Just like that. Now, we don't put our nut down real far, just get it started. Like that. Because then we'll come out, back out here. And we can get our other screw. Get it through our material. And we're going to have to do a little bit of stretching. Get it in place. That gets those two spots. I've already done the other side. I got to screw them on there, but I have my spots already marked. And the reason I took this side back off, you're going to notice, I got one side done, had them in. Now it's a pain in the butt to pull this down. So I took it off so I could get the other side lined up. So now I get to try and pull all this into place. This will help. Very much so. All right, that's under there. Now the fun starts. You've got to get that cable in top underneath it. I unfortunately don't have another person here right now today. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this myself. But one thing you want to check as you're doing this before you get into it too far, you've got this seam on the top here, and you got your body line here. You want to make sure that you're the same on both sides. Basically keeping the top in there centered, so it don't look goofy when that comes down. Try to do right here. If you don't have the cable, it's as easy as stapling it to your wood. Trying to get the cable started here. As you Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. And our seam is there. Yeah. So now I've got to get a wrench. So I've got my wrench in here, and I'm going to basically come inside here now, and I'm going to start tightening up that cable. So I've done a little bit on both sides. I'm just going to come back here. Start working my cable in by hand too. Got a long way to go yet. Let's see how it's coming back here. Well, looks like it's sucking up. This spot right here always looks terrible, the way it transitions in. It's just kind of the nature of the beast of how that's trying to pull in, because the cable comes through right here on the top, and so it don't look, I shouldn't say that it don't look nice, because it really does. That's the way it was from the factory, but okay, I've got those as tight as they'll go. Okay. That's what we got. That went much easier than it normally does. Now we get to do the front. That looks good. So the front is going to basically, we've got this flap here and that's going to come over. Now because we're so tight back here, I'm going to get in here. Get ourselves kind of started. Okay. So you got to do most of the work with it partially open, because there's going to be a lot of stretching. Now, on the 67 and older here, they have a screw right here that's going to also hold your top to the frame. The newer cars don't have that. So I kind of like that, because it's a pain in the butt to hold this thing in there at the same time. But we're going to let me regroup here and figure out my best way of doing this. So let me come up with a plan of attack. I've done it, but all right, I think I've got a plan of attack. I know it seems kind of weird that I would have to take a pause and think it through. I've done a lot of them, but sometimes it's easier to just turn the camera off and let me figure out how I want to do it and what the best bet is instead of you watching me trial and error. But this is what I'm going to do. So I've gone through, and what has to happen is this lip here obviously has to sit right here on the edge of the seal. Then this has to fold down onto here and wrap onto there. And the only way I'm going to be able to hold that on there is to glue it. I'll be able to staple the little bit right here to help, but that's after this is glued. So what I started to do is I started to get this corner done, and I put these temporary screws in here. They'll come out when we put our rubber on, but at least this is kind of holding this corner in place, because that obviously I won't be able to glue very well, so this will hold there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to work this to where it roughly it has to be, like that, and then I'm going to put temporary screws in here also. Then I'll come through whatever trimming, because obviously I'm going to have to do some cutting in here so this can fold into here. That's always a tricky thing, deciding where to cut that stuff, because it's got to come around. You still want to cover the wood in here, but yeah. So you can see where it's kind of a dilemma, and you got to think it through before you take your chance, because once you cut it, it's cut. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna get this side squared away, and then I'm gonna get some glue. I'm not gonna use the spray glue. I don't think that's strong enough. I'm gonna use my weather strip glue, or you use contact cement. That will hold much better. But we're basically, to recap, we need this lip. We want to probably go a little bit more than we think and have this, down here like this, because as we close this top, this is going to stretch back up some, because it's going to be very tight once we close the top. That vinyl / canvas, whatever you have, is going to have to stretch. So that's where we're at. You can see here I even got this one screw. I had started it, but I did leave it out, because if I do pull on it, it's kind of pulling this back a little bit, so I didn't want that extra pull in there. So let me get to work. Right, I've got our screws on both sides. I open the top up. That gives us a lot more, we don't have to pull as tight, and it won't pull back as much. I've got our glue on there. I've used the weather strip. You can use contact cement, probably would work really well. So now that that's tacked over, we are going to get our edge where we want it here. Now, I ended up not cutting my top at all here. I'm going to be able to just, I think, tuck that right down in there. I took out the screw that holds the headliner, and then we'll put the headliner back, and that'll cover that, and that'll help hold that in there. So that was my plan of attack there. Now on the newer cars where the seal gets screwed on here, it's kind of nice because it actually helps hold the top to the header bowl versus relying on the glue. The screws kind of, it's nicer, I think, but this does look cleaner too. So I'm going to let that dry really well before I close the top, because there's going to be a lot of tension on there that's going to pull all this back, and I don't want that to pull up, so I want to make sure that glue is dry good. It seems like it was drying really well. It definitely is sticking good, so more to come. Okay, so while our glue is drying, doing a few other things here. Once I did take these off and I put glue on here too, so that stays good. Same here. And I figure I'm going to go through and start fitting my trim, put my latches back on. Here's the scenario that I ran into. So I've got this one. There's holes in here for our screws to go through in this plastic. And I've got this one lined up. And you can see how close it is here. So now when I come to this side, we have a much larger gap, and our holes are off. Yeah, our hole's probably like right there. Aftermarket junk. So what I'm going to have to do, I'll take it back off, and I'll oval those holes out a little bit more to move it this way, and then I'll have to oval these out on this side a little bit to make them match up. That's about all I can do there. But when I glued this in and did this part of it, here's how I said I was going to put the screw in there with the headliner back in there. And I did have to put a little bit of a slice in the top here. I couldn't get it to pull in there tight enough, so I did have to slice it a little bit. But so I'm going to work on getting that trim piece to fit, and then we'll get our latches on and our handles, and then we'll try closing it. See how tight it is. Okay. All right, I got her shut. We've got stuff like this where the top was folded in the bag. That'll come out with heat. The creases, once it stretches for a while. Good day out in the sun will take care of a lot of this stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is cut our window out and get that stapled on. I'm going to go from the inside in the center of the window and poke out. Like that. Like I said, that takes a lot of stress off the tightening up there too. So that'll help. Every job's a little bit different. Depends on how things go together. But we're going to do this window, top part of it, the same as we did with the headliner. By keeping lots. It's way Now I'll take some of this excess off. Somewhere in there. Could probably start stapling some of that. Sometimes I gotta just sit back and think and kind of plan ahead in my head how I want to go about it. Just kind of recoup myself instead of just jumping into it. They're padding there. I'll pull that down. Taunt. So that's looking all right. We could probably put another slice right here. Let's see if I can get you in here and see what I'm doing. Here's where I cut. I want to get that as close to the corner as possible because we don't want this excess sitting over that, because we got to have our window rubber has to lip over that. We don't want excess material there. Just gonna make it a nightmare otherwise. So, gonna finish up cutting the rest of that out of there, and I'll bring you back and we'll start finishing off our edges here and some of our headliner inside. So let me finish up this window opening and we'll be back. All right, we got a lot to cover here for you. So working on this setup here, want to get this together. Now I don't know why, but I've seen this several times now lately. Here's our top, and this has to pull inside here. And I don't know why they don't make this flap come up further. I had to take some material from the window cutout and put that on here. Otherwise, when everything is all said and done and the rubber and that is on here, you're going to see this wood from the outside. I'm not sure why. I never used to have that problem before, but the last 3-4 tops I've done have been like that. So I'm not sure why they have changed that or what the reasoning is, but so like I said, I just took a piece of my cutout from the rear window and I glued that on here. Okay. The other part, so once we get this on here, I'm going to end up gluing this onto here. Make sure that I got you positioned. So I'm going to glue this on here, and then we know where our rubber goes here. I will end up trimming that off right in the center of where the rubber is going to go. Okay? I wish that this was even bigger yet this way, because then we could just wrap it and leave it black in there, but that won't work either. So what I'll do is I'll cut that, and then I've got a piece of headliner here that I'll be able to tuck behind there and put on. And then when the rubber is on there, we'll have the inner and the outer part. So that's how I'm going to take care of that. Because you also have said if this was bigger, that would be nice, because then it could wrap up here. We've got our metal plate that'll then get screwed onto here. And then we also have this plate that when this gets wrapped into here will get screwed onto the bottom of this bowl. So when this closes up, it seals against that. So that's how I'm going to do that. The other thing that I got ready is our, I don't know what you'd call them. They kind of cover the hinge cover a little bit. Remember, I had these in there before, and I said, well, I had them in there loose because I had to take them off because I wrapped them. Here, let's kind of put this one in here. It goes in there like that. So if I don't do something with it, you're going to see that wood. So I like to wrap them with headliner material. So I've started to do the other side already, and it's kind of a pain. You know, you do the best you can. This is the part that's going to get, the screw's going to tighten that on there. So I'm going to put this on. It's going to be on there like this. But we have to leave this loose because we got to be able to get at our screws. So if we come back over here again, let's see here. I'm going to get inside here. This is going to go on here. Like this. That one start. Anyway, I'm going to screw that tight. Then I'll be able to take this and I'll glue this in this back side, and I'll be able to glue this on here. So that's how that gets finished off. And like I said, you can kind of see this edge of that wood. Remember, we'll have this piece wrapping into there. So that's what's going to happen there. Then with this piece of of headliner. Let's shut our top. Part way at least. This particular model, this is basically just going to get pulled taut and stapled onto this piece of wood. And then our hinge cover will go on there like that. So you can see why we want this thing to be covered. We'd see all that wood. Now on your later cars, this hinge cover is different. It's actually a lot larger, and it has the holes for the back seat latch. It will have a little hook here that this will hook into. And the other thing that's a little different on those is your headliner, the way the frame is made, will have a place that you can put a screw right here and screw it to the frame to keep this spot also tight. So the little bit of differences between the years or whatever, but you just got to kind of keep going through and fitting everything to make it look clean. Now back here, I've got to put my carpet padding in first. We'll want to do that. I'll get that in here. So this is, then the padding will also come up here. Then we'll work and glue this. We'll have to put a bunch of slits in here and work this so it looks real nice along here, and then our carpet will go on top of that. Same with this edge here. We'll put our padding on there, and we'll glue and work this all in there. So that's where we're at, and that's what I'm going to be working on next. So let me finish it up, and then I'll bring you back and show you what the finished product looks like. Hello! Got our spots done here. Our seal will cover that part. Here's all of this. Now we're gonna finish off the rest of this here. I've put my padding in, so this can sit on top of there, and then the carpet will sit on top. So my first step, tried to bring everything in here. Got the staple gun. I want to pull that nice and tight. Like that. I'll give her another one for good measure. I said if you got a newer car, there'll be a spot on the top frame that you'll be able to put a screw in here to keep this tight. But then we're just gonna kind of do the whole snippet thing here to get ourselves to lay flat. You know, we've got our wood there, so I don't want to cut too much. Gets up there far enough. It's always a little bit of a challenge through here. Now I'm not sure why there's so much excess wood, why they put it in, because I don't want to staple this, because my carpet is probably only going to come through here, so I don't want staples in there, so I'll have to end up gluing that. Kind of looks good there. That'll work. This side's kind of a pain a little bit because the wire harness goes through there. Yeah, we're gonna have to definitely put a slit there. Now, from the factory, convertibles weren't perfect anyway. It's just the nature of the beast, because not everything gets pulled tight and the top going up and down. I think I want to put a slice in here too. Yep. That'll work. So then we can, let's see what we can do. We don't need all this junk here. I'll take a little bit of this off too. Yeah. Then we can put glue on here. I brought some paper in. Okay, and let that dry a little bit. I can do the same thing here. Just get some of this to start tacking. Nope, my paper fell out. Thought we got more. This should be tacked up enough. Yep. That. Let's see what we can do with this mess. I have to. Can take a little bit of this off. Yeah, we need another slit right here. That's better. That's how I'm working that in there. I said now the carpet will come through right through here. We can take, yeah, let's just leave it. Let's get some glue on it. Okay, let's go over to the other side. I'm getting too old to be moving around in here. Really not that old, but I can complain, can't I? Let's get our staple gun here. Not going to mess with this too much more till I get the carpet and see how that's going to lay in there. Maybe I can notch that more, but a little bit wrinkly. But like I said, kind of the nature of the beast too. Oh, there, that's sticking on there. So that I'll do the rest when I put the carpet in there. But that's how I'm trimming that out. I'll be able to get my carpet in on the back here, and then I can put my hinge covers on. And I think the top is pretty much done. Besides, we've got our rubber seals to put on, and I'll come back and maybe I'll do another video on that. I've got to get my windows in first before I do those, so I can get those adjusted. Sometimes on your rubber seals when they go in here, you've got to make little shims to shim it out. Believe it or not, even from the factory they were that way. A lot of times you'll find a shim that they made. So the convertibles obviously were not precisely made. There was a lot of tolerances that built up. So some cars have shims on the front post too. I know John's convertible over there, his vent window and his, where it goes up to the front window frame, the top has got a wider gap than the bottom, and that is normal sometimes. So you take a piece of shim and you shim out the rubber to make up that difference. So I said I've seen it from the factory. But that's the essential part of putting the convertible top on. It's definitely takes some time. It's a lot of work. You got to be patient. And remember, a convertible isn't going to be like a sedan. It isn't going to be 100% perfect and smooth just because of the nature of the car. But we've got our latches and everything done here. And I do have to put the rear window in yet, but that I'll want a helper for that one. Those are it's gonna go in two ways, easy or hard. There's no in between with those. And sometimes they're a pain in the butt. But I appreciate you guys. I hope you learned something. If you got any questions, comment down below. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing John's top over there next, and I'll video that one too. You know, can't hurt to have two versions. That way you'll see that's a 69, so you'll see some differences there that I've talked about on the cars. But keep them going. Have fun. Take care.